Hi, welcome to Round of Insight. I am David, and during this 7-minute round, I will explain how to use Android ConstraintLayout. We will create an empty project and use it to experiment with ConstraintLayout. Are you ready? Let's begin. First, let's create an empty project in Android Studio. Call it anything you like. We're going to call it Constraints. Hit Next. Next. Add no activity. We'll add it later. Finish. Once created, let's hit on the project, select the package, and let's create an activity. File, New, Activity, and choose an empty activity. And check the launcher activity here. Finish. Tuk tuk. At this point, if you have the latest Android Studio, you should have constraint layout added. And if you let's open the layout file, and as you can see here, we have a constraint layout already. If you didn't have, or you somehow needed to add it later on, you can choose layouts, and the constraint layout is here. You can drag and drop into your component tree. So what is a constraint layout? Okay. The constraint layout is an evolution of the relative layout. If you've been using relative layout and found some views difficult to arrange and had to add linear layout inside maybe another linear layout and put that all somewhere inside the relative layout, this is the sort of problems that constraint layout solves. Going forward, always use constraint layout instead of relative layout. It is supported in versions 9 and above. So to understand constraint layout, let's try to drag a view onto our activity and see how it will perform. So let's drag a text view. So text, date view is fine. We add it. There we go. So if you select the view, you can see a little diagram inside the layout editor. This is on the right side here. The diagram shows the margins and types of constraints. Also, the vertical and horizontal biases, which we'll show you later. One important requirement of the constraint layout is that each view has at least one horizontal and one vertical constraint. So we can specify those by dragging this, just clicking on the side and dragging it to the one side and dragging this one to the other side. So one vertical and one horizontal constraint. So now this view is valid. It will draw properly. If we didn't specify these constraints, what you'll have is you'll have an error displaying here. So currently we have an error. Let's see what it is. It's just saying consider adding a margin. Okay, so this is not an error. This is a warning. We're fine with that. If we didn't have this, so let's see, one of them is removed, the error number went to 2, and one of them is not a warning, is now says the view is not constrained vertically. So that's what you have to watch out for. Now if we add both constraints, so let's add both constraints, both horizontally and vertically. What we get also here in our little diagram is the vertical bias and the horizontal bias, and this essentially tells the activity where to position the view, what percentage from top and left side will be used to move it relative to the activity. As with relative layout, you can specify multiple views relative to each other, just like you did before in relative layout. So let's drag another one here. So I'm dragging another view, and then let's put this view, connect the top side to here and the bottom to the bottom. Okay, now this, if we drag this, so now it is positioned next to this one. And we also need to specify vertical layout. Let's do that. Done. Okay, so it is in the middle. What I could have done is I could have specified it to be nicely side by side with this one. However, it automatically moves it a little bit because we had the other constraint. So after I moved it, see, now it is almost perfectly aligned, but in order for it to be totally perfectly aligned. We have to remove this margin which was automatically added, so let's remove it, set it to 0, and boom, perfectly aligned. So now the beauty of this is if you move the top one, the below one will also move, so you don't need to edit the code or anything. One addition to constraint layout that wasn't possible with relative layout is spacing of multiple views with equal space in between them. So to show you that, let me remove these two that we created, and I'm going to drag one number text view, and let me change the text view size to make it smaller. Just EMS, change it to 1. Okay, so let's make a few copies of this. 1, 2. Okay, so now we have 3 of them, and let's try to align these 3 perfectly horizontally. So to do that, you need to select with Shift all 3 of them, right click on one of them and say center horizontally. Boom. So after this, you can see that all these views are changed, so they're equally aligned horizontally, and you can also add margins and anything like you would if they weren't chained, and that would affect it beautifully. One more thing is though, because they're not, we didn't specify vertical constraint, so it's still invalid, so we need to also specify the vertical constraint. And once we do that, now it's a valid view and all 3 are equally spaced between each other. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.